conference today, so I wouldn't miss this. There's a remote and point clicker over here.
Okay.
If you're looking.
I don't know.
I'm here to the library. It works. How was your mother? How do you get to sleep over something anymore? Well, you know, she left us and just, act like nothing else anymore. Oh, we come back. We'll hire her.
Hey guys, can y'all hear me through this mic?
We can find her a spot. You tell her, come on back. We'll put her in her room next year.
She's going to come here.
Because we have third grade, we'll have third grade students next year.
Okay, so I am blind. Okay, thank you.
So that's all right. You got the first day out.
That's okay, I'll tell him. I'm curious, we had this in high school meeting. The farm here gave us this, I wish I could get it. Yeah, well, with it's fine with a light in it, and it's for the little cup. Yes. Right. We're showing them the cherish. It is for you. Yes, sir. Hey, where's your mom? Yes. Yes. Still got it 1 point. What is she talking about is? Tell her snickers and popcorn. You do what you're supposed to and get the nicest on it's gonna be fine. Praise the Lord. Say how you in the price. They're gonna help you. Put it out for 36 months. My mom just let the process. She might get them off in 6 months. I'm just like that. Because they have been. So you're with the art department, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are y'all the ones that drew the stuff on the sidewalk? That was me. Hey, and I want us to do that for all the way rest of Princess Five to the free. I told them that was gonna happen. And live is now, I'm saying right now,
So the new thing was, I did all the prep work, I did all the drawing. And then the teachers and everybody kind of came in and just painted. They did like the colored part.
I told him, I said, this really brightens up and buns up, that's not really.
It does. It's very institutionalized over there. It's all very boxy and
With no windows, except the one window in our room. Doesn't,
no,
like,
I
that's
noticed that.
you know, like today was a nice day. I would have given anything to just be able to open the windows and let that building, you know, it gets so stale and stagnant in there because it's so. There's not great, the only ventilation we have is like the air conditioning run 24/7. Just to cycle air in because there are no windows. Because there's no windows, no fan against the run. Even when the unit's on it, it just doesn't get pulled out of the building.
Yeah,
The steel, that just kind of,
I can,
yeah.
Mhm. I know you, I mean,
Well, when they built it, well, they figured out. So back then, it was supposed to be like one of the state-of-the-art buildings in the state. It was supposed to be one of the safest buildings as far as like preventive stuff, because of the way it's built. But there is a lot of, downfalls to it. I mean, you can't get any fresh air in.
They do that stuff.
You know. Again, I probably wouldn't let us open windows anyway, because even our outside doors have to stay closed a month for security reasons. So I mean, it's not like when we were in school where you could open up the windows and let fresh air in and not be worried about it. But now you have to worry about somebody jumping in the window. Did you say we did our
mm-mm. Unless you want them, unless you want to use them, you don't have to have them. Oh, no, I need to add. Maybe if I just sign it out, I can sign in. I am not John.
Not chart, which is not very fine. Thank you for Well, you want one? Weird, I feel like color code my name. I have to color.
Do I need to go ahead and allow this recording locally or not? Yes, ma'am. If you get any requests for recording, just go ahead and accept them. Some students are recording so they can go back and watch it again later. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Yep. Okay, can't minimize.
You said you are recording it?
Yes, she is recording it, and then some of the people on Zoom are recording their own. Yeah, Racy will have it. You can just get it from her.
Okay.
So we are recording, but the file is too big to send through email. So we're trying to upload it to the Hempstead Hall's YouTube. So that's in process. Wrong one. Okay, it looks like it. Yeah, we're recording. Okay, thank you.
Well, all I have to do is share screen, right? Okay. Oh no, it's down here. Right. Yep. Okay, a few more minutes. This. Okay. I can't believe it's already been a week. It's crazy. No, it's on. No, it's on. All right.
Oh, hey. Does everybody have copies from last week? Does anybody need? We've got 1, 2 that needs copies. Always good. Okay. Just one set of copies. Areas. Not too worried, but it needs to be mild. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
time to start. All righty, I'm gonna shut that door.
Nothing else.
All righty, can everybody on Zoom hear? I'm hoping so.
Yes, ma'am, that's good.
Yes. Okay, good deal. If I start shouting, let me know. Because it's different in this room than it was last week. No, come on. I don't think you were with us last week, were you? Okay, let me get you some of the copies. Okay, so does everybody have their homework from last week?
Y'all forgot your homework. Well, I'm glad we can start homework today. Okay. Let's see. All right, so last week we left off talking about just the basics that are in a grant. So what I wanted you guys to do, kind of in preparation for today, which you can just think about it, is developing a mission statement that includes your organization, some type of organization that you're in, something super simple, but you have a target audience and a location for your nonprofit. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to kind of think on that. These are just all extra notes, and here's the actual article. All right. Yes. Both. It can be both, one or other or the both. If you're serving outside of, if you have okay, let's just say if I have a home office in Hope, but I have satellite services, let's say let's just say Prescott, because it's here. But let's just say my funding source is excluding anything outside of Nevada County. So then you have to switch everything that you have to be serving Nevada County. You only count the people that you serve in Nevada County for a grant like that. Okay. So, and there's other ways to kind of handle that when you're actually doing your writing and stuff. You can say that your physical location is XYZ, possibly because it's, you know, a free rent situation. That's why you're not located in where your services are being given. Okay. So you can do that. You can live in one location and serve people in another district. You just have to make sure that the people that are reading your grant are going to understand that. Okay. So that's going to be a trick of playing with your wording. So just be careful with that and make sure that you have somebody proofread that, so you get an outsider's point of view of how that reads. Okay. All right. So did anybody complete their homework? Yay. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your organization.
I'm the rehab director for Little River Health System.
Okay.
We provide therapy services for adults for years. So we're branching out to cover pediatrics.
That's
So
exciting.
We've already started taking protocols and we've already seen looking at new clinics.
Yes.
Because our hospital is old, it doesn't lend itself well to kids, especially autistic kids on the spectrum. So my idea is to get a grant to help get a new facility, some sort of.
Right. Good. Okay. So you serve adults in Howard County,
Little River. Yeah.
Little River.
But
Okay.
Howard instead,
Yeah, so you've got a little bit of an you've got people coming from outside of your county in too. So that's something very important for you to always line out, that you might be located here, but you serve the whole community. Okay. So that's always good to make sure that you point out. You serve adults with therapy. You're working with fine motor, gross motor, all those things. So we've got a good direction. We know specifically who you're going to serve and where they're going to be served at, right? Okay. Would you like to share yours with us?
I'm a volunteer firefighter in
Okay.
for a little rural.
Okay. Awesome. So you serve everybody in the community in your community, yes. So you have a geographic kind of boundary that so you guys only serve in this area.
Basically.
Unless you're called for help or if there's something on the border or something. Yeah. So you lend assistance. Okay. So we know your roundabout geographic location, and I would tie that down to something that is really understandable by your readers. So if it's not like Hempstead County or Nevada County, then you can say like a combination of 3 counties or something there. So just be thinking about that you're going to have to give them a picture in their heads when they're reading to understand that, where that is and how the boundaries are kind of laid out. Not specifically, like don't give them digits, but to be able to understand that you may not serve a county, but you serve a rural community. Yep. Okay. So let's say I did my homework. Okay, so I'm going to do my organization. So I am an arts organization that covers all the arts, which is huge. Everything from literature to movies, to shows, to music, to fine arts, graphic arts. I mean, we cover everything. So I don't need to say all of that in my mission statement. Or in the information that we put out there. Don't give too much information. Need to have enough that the picture is planted in their minds that they understand, but you don't want to give them too much. Okay. So my target audience is really kind of birth to what I say. I don't say birth to death, because I don't want to wish death on anybody, and I feel like I'm calling that out. So I never say birth to death. I always say birth to elderly whenever I'm writing, because we don't serve anybody in their death. Do you see what I'm saying? So I always say elderly, or if you actually have like an age cutoff, then that would be who you're serving. Okay, so if you have specific ranges, then that needs to be specifically in there, because if I say an arts organization, people are just going to assume that we do all ages. Okay. But if I were an arts organization just doing like arts and education, then I would be school-based ages. Okay. And so I would say to the community or funders that our target audience is school-age children. Okay. So that would be, so for us, it's everybody. Our location, we are centrally located in Hope. However, we serve all of Southwest Arkansas. Okay. All right. So keep all those things in mind as we move forward today, because we're going to talk about searching. We're going to back up a little bit. So last week we talked a lot about just the basics of the grant writing process. And before I go on today, there's a couple of things I need to let you guys know. I brought some binders. So if anybody wants to look at my binders and see how I have things arranged, please feel free to come up and look.
This is the Mac Daddy. This is my orange binder. This is my life. This has all of the private foundations in the state of Arkansas that funds organizations similar to mine. Okay, so, and I have this that I will get to you guys if you'll bring me a jump drive or a thumb drive or whatever anybody calls them these days. I will copy it for you and bring it back on the last day of class. If not, I can try to break it down and send it to Racy, and I've got it on 2 files and they're pretty big, so I'm not going to be able to email it. So I can break it down into smaller for anybody that can't bring a flash drive with them, so I can give you what I have. Now, that does not mean that you can't go, and we'll talk about it today, and look for other foundations that might fit you guys better than the ones that I have here. Okay, we'll talk about all this. But I wanted to let you know that they're here so you can come look at it. The other thing we're going to kind of talk about is my organization for grants and foundations, because being in the fields that we're typically in, we're busy people. We don't have a lot of time to keep doing a bunch of research. So it's really important that once you find what you need, that you have access to it all the time, because it's going to save you so much time when you're writing multiple grants, or if you've got to switch your statistics because you're going to a different program. Okay. So then I also brought to you one of my statistics books. I just brought this one that I have my general statistics in and not my art related statistics. I keep those in another binder because those are, it's pretty thick, my research into that. So that's where I keep all of my scientific papers, and then I keep just the any kind of art related statistic in that other binder, so I don't get it mixed up with this one. Okay. And it just makes it easier when I have to pull something out, but I'm not got one huge binder. I've got 2 smaller ones. Okay, so let's talk about looking. Okay, so the important thing when you're starting the looking process is to know your need. We talked about this the last time, and like I said, there's going to be a lot of things that are repetitive because it's not just a straight cut field. You've got different layers of things that overlapped. So if you know which need that you're going for, that's going to cut down your searching, so you're not searching a wide variety of topics. Okay. And I would not suggest looking at more than one topic at a time when you're pulling your research and searching. Okay, so what is your mission? We got to know what your mission is. And this right here is something, if you've got a lot of multiple layers in your organization or your company, you may not actually know that. They may not push that from the top down. So just make sure that you get your hands on it and you know it. And if you're a small organization that maybe rural firefighters doesn't have a mission statement, well, you guys create one. Okay. Just throw something together that sounds really good, that describes specifically what you do. Okay. Also knowing, so we might have, let's say I'm going to do art classes. So is that going to cover everybody? Am I going to do everybody in one class, or do I need to break it down by individual program? Am I going to write for just the kids program? Am I going to write for after school? Okay, so knowing which program that you're going after as well will help you look. Okay, what kind of money are you looking for? Are you looking for big money? Are you looking for money that may not have a bunch of responsibilities attached to it? So going after a federal grant is not going to be your cup of tea. Don't do that. Okay, so knowing that sort of thing will help you steer clear of looking for something that you're really not interested in. Okay, so do you need operating money? Okay,
So operating money, for those of you that may not be familiar with it, that's what those costs that you incur to make your program happen on a daily basis. Okay. Opening the doors, turning on the lights, running your copier, sending email, all those things are your operating costs. Okay. Now, is it programming? Is it art supplies that I'm going to put in a classroom for an artist to use with the students? Okay. That's programming. Okay. Is everybody good on that? That's
Hey, Jennifer.
sure.
Okay, so programming is more like like the specific supplies that would be needed,
Yes.
I guess.
And anything
Thank you.
that's attached to that. So it could also be the salaries of the workers. It can be anything that actually touches that program. It could be utilities for that building. It could be rent for that building. It could be any of those costs, but they have to be directly related to that program service. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think I just kind of got confused because if it's operating, that would be like in my
Right.
mind, that would be more like the utilities. But I guess if could like utilities be either operating or programming, I guess?
Yes, they can
Or
be
is
both.
okay.
Well,
Okay.
let's just say like you're in the same building. So like my building, let's say, because we do our operating and we do our programming in the same building. Okay, so a portion of this is how I would do it in a grant. So let's just say I want to count utilities on my grant for my program. Okay, so I want this grant to help me on some of the light bill because, you know, hey, electricity's expensive. So what I would do is I would figure out my square footage or maybe a head count of those that are going to work and do services in that part of a building. Okay, so it's going to be separate from your offices and everything else. So depending on how that looks, whether it's by head count, square footage, you find your percentage of that. And then you take, let's just say your $350 a month utility bill and you take off, 55% because that's what you're using over here for your program. And that's how much you would ask for in that grant to pay utilities. Is anybody completely confused with that? It's a little bit of of changing your numbers up and making sure that because grants are somewhat siloed, okay, but services are not necessarily siloed. We can't just say, okay, well, here's our business office. Nothing about services is going to come across this business office. In small organizations, that's just not going to happen. You're going to be using the same copier. You're going to be using the same telephone number. You're going to be using the same copy paper, that sort of thing. So you just take a percentage based on what the program is of that would be technically termed operating. Okay. To be able to put that in your program. You can do that with staff too. You can do that with your administrators too. If it is a frontline staff that is working all the way in there, then it's 100% of their salary goes in there. Let's say it's mine and I'm just overseeing the program. I'm not actually in there teaching. So I might spend 5 to 10% of my time administering the project that somebody else goes out and does. So then I would take that 5 or 10% of my time that I administrate it and include that in the grant as well, if the funder is open to it. Okay. That's the thing with doing your research, because some grants might say no operating costs, but anything programming is okay. Well, if you tie it to your programming, you're good. But if you can't tie it to your programming, you're not good, and you better search for something different. Okay. So operating and programming can sometimes be a very, very thin line that is transparent. So just remember, if it's anyway associated with your actual going out into the field, then you're good to include that in your budget there. Okay, searching takes time. You're going to have to spend the time to do all of your research and get everything ready. Take the time up front. Don't rush through the preparing part of it. Pull all sorts of demographics in our area so that way you'll have it in case you need it later. Okay. So take the time. It's okay. You're going to have to dedicate time. You're going to have to shut your door. You're going to have to put your cell phone away so you don't look at it. Send your calls to voicemail and just spend time on it. That's the only way that you're going to be able to really get the information that you're going to need, is if you've kind of focused in on it. So schedule it. Schedule your searching and you're looking. We're going to kind of pause here and we're going to be looking at this document here. And for those of you on Zoom, we're doing the January through April form. And it's got all the lines next to it. So when I am searching for my grants, and I do this regularly. Now, I haven't done it probably in 3 or 4 months. You know, every once in a while, I will stop and take a day just to see if I can find anything new that's out there, or revisit some of the older ones that I've pulled information from, because you're not going to be able to write every grant that comes your way. Your life's going to take over. Your job's going to take over. Things are going to happen. So if you miss a date, it's okay. I mean, it's going to happen. I've missed dates, and I just missed one recently. And it really does upset you, but know that that's okay, because we can't hit them all. So, but the thing is that maybe next year, or maybe next time that it comes around, you may have time to do it then, but you don't need to go back and do all your research again. So this is a way that you can kind of keep everything, all the time that you've spent researching and looking and finding, to be able to go back to it regularly without having to pull all your stuff out. Okay. So what I do when I research, let's just say a foundation, and I know I've read everything there, they meet up my my needs, fit up what they're going to fund. So that is okay. So we're good there. They support all the activities that my organization does. Okay, that's good. Another check mark. Are they going to be able, am I going to be able to write to this? Do they cover my geographic location? Yes, check mark, check mark. Okay, great. I found a foundation that I can write to. But guess what? It's not until like 3 or 4 months down the road. Okay, so it's not open yet. I can't do it. Here's a good way to remember it. So let's just say I found something that's coming up in April. I'm going to write it here. I'm just going to write the name of the foundation. And then I take my binder and I split it up between months. And so everything from January is listed in the January section. So all the grants that I've ever found. So what I keep is just a couple pages in there of the information about the organization that I'm going to be writing to. It's going to be those minimum things that they require of that grant ask. Okay. And so every time I find one, then I just file it away. I either write it right then and then file it away for next year. Okay. So if I get denied, then guess what? You know, next April, I'll see that coming up and I'll be like, okay, it's time to write that grant again. Okay. So this has just been an easy way for me not to have to do research all the time and forget what I've looked at, because you will get through looking so many of these and being so depressed because nobody wants to fund my services. So you get kind of downtrodden on that.
But it's just easy to be able to pull this off the shelf, and I change it out every month or so. I might go like a quarter, I'll pull out all the ones for a quarter and set them up in individual files. And if I can get to them, then I get to them. Or if it's one of those that I know that I have to get to, then that one goes to the top. Okay. So this is just an easy way to keep all that stuff together. Yes, ma'am. I usually start a minimum of 4 weeks before the deadline. But that's because I already know who I'm writing to. A lot of my research and all of that is done. I would suggest that at least 6 weeks before that you guys would start the process of looking at it, making sure, let's just say it's something I have saved from last year. Well, that foundation may have completely changed. COVID shut down so many foundations. They had gotten flooded with so many requests that foundations were literally shutting down their websites and sending out emails saying, we have the people from, this was the typical thing. So anybody that was funded from that particular foundation in the previous year before COVID, well, they were the only organizations that got funded during COVID because, for one, they didn't have the manpower to go through the review every year. So it just changed that dramatically. And some of the foundations have not opened up to the public. They're still funding, they're still sending out funding, but they're just not opening up publicly. So if it's something that I've had on my plate for a while, you know, in my binder, I'm going to pull it out before I start writing just to make sure all the information is the same, that they haven't changed any of their requirements. I've gone back to corporate foundations like a year later and their whole focus has changed. So pull that one out and throw it away because it doesn't apply to what I do anymore. So that's a good way. Just make sure that you update those at least annually, anything that you pull off like that. So when you come back around to it is a good time to update that information. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm just afraid it's going to start going here in a minute. It's going to be like 15 slides in front of me. Oh no, don't freeze up on me. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so what are we looking for? If I can get that. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing you're going to look at when you pull up that website or that information, you're looking at their focus area and funding priority, because that's going to be the first thing that's going to rule you in or rule you out. Mm-hmm.
I've noticed them looking for government that we've had a lot of sites on there that pay us to go do this for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, don't do that. And that's, I've got a site here because this actually happened this last week. I had somebody message me and they were like, hey, will you look at this site? It looks really good. It's like, it looked to be, I don't know, government kind of based is the way it kind of looked. And it looked like it was going to be a good clearinghouse. All it is clickbait. That's all it is, because there's no information on this site, and I'll show it to you guys, that is not on the official sites. So I would not give your information away unless you know it's going to be not accessible somewhere else. And there are some sites, so we'll talk about some of those prescription
subscription sites, that I would definitely recommend at least doing for a year and then seeing how it goes. If it's something that's not good for you, don't spend the money on it for another year. I think within 1 year's time, you should be able to get through a subscription service and be able to find everything from their site in that first year. And unless there's just new foundations popping up here and there, there's probably not going to be any new information on that site for a while. So I would not pay every year for it. And I have paid in the past every year for it, and I can tell you it's just not worth it. It's really not. Okay, so look at that funding focus area, and that's going to give you your first indication whether or not, maybe it's just my battery stuff. Well, I don't know what it is. Okay, so that's your first stop. Okay, service area is going to be the next qualifier or disqualifier. Okay, either you're in it or you're not. There's no way to get around it. Okay, the demographics of the areas that you serve. So when I gave the example earlier, a hope-based organization serving people in Nevada County. So just because you're housed in Hope doesn't mean that you can't get funding for a different county or for a different whatever. It just means that you have to be careful and don't spend any of that grant money in other counties. Okay, so that just comes to your documentation to make sure it's not being spent somewhere it's not supposed to be. But you can write a grant for a different county, even if you're housed in a separate location. And that's where how you write in your grant to describe that your funders will not be confused with. Okay, are there restrictions to any kind of demographics? If your organization, I know we talk a lot about not discriminating. If your organization discriminates on, it can be any number of things that you can say, this is not coming in, but we don't do this in our program. You have to be very careful and make sure that is allowable from that funder. Okay, and the biggest one you can look at would be either race or religious beliefs. So those are the two big things that you have to watch out for and make sure that if you do exclude anybody or activity in the community, that you explain why. Okay, so what type of funding are you looking for? Is it going to be that general operating? This is going to be probably less than 20% of foundation grants, corporate grants, not so much on the federal grants. They have a lot more leeway as far as like general operating costs. Foundations absolutely is probably down to maybe less than 10% will let you actually get funding for your overhead costs. Are you just looking for programming? Okay. Dates. You need to look at your date of submission is the very next thing that you need to look at, because if you need to get on it tonight, then that needs to be something that right then. If it's passed, just finish up your research, put it in your binder, and it'll be there for when you're ready for it next time. Okay. If it's coming up and you've got 4 to 6 weeks, I'd set it on your desk and just get started. Okay. Make sure you have all your demographics and everything else that you need to start the writing process. Yeah.
So I just, they didn't, and don't even take down that information. That's really
It saves you so much time from year to year because you already know. I mean, even federal grants, you can kind of see a little bit of forecast there. You can look back on previous offerings to see, make sure it comes out of forecast. That's some terminology for the federal grants, but it's so good that just because you miss a date doesn't mean you're always going to miss that date. So save your information for another time. Okay. Oh, so the other date that you want to look at is disbursements, as far as like, when are you going to get your money? Okay. So the federal grant that we have right now, it is a reimbursement grant. We have to spend the money first, and then I send in an invoice to the feds, and then they send us a check back. So that's a little bit different. Most everybody, especially foundation grants, because they're going to want just a clean cut. They're going to want documentation to show that they sent it, that we received it, and they're good. A lot of times they don't want anything extra. Make sure your missions are aligned. That's the next thing. So you get through all this other stuff on your checklist, and then go back and make sure that your missions are aligned. Okay. We don't want to be out there chasing money. Don't go chasing money. I know it's hard, but don't spend your time on something you're not going to get. Okay. So you got to know your own geography. You got to know where you are and where you're serving. And you'd be surprised at how many people and organizations really don't know what the mission is, and they don't know what their service area is. You know, people just go on and, you know, in their daily life and their little job, and they don't think about these things. Okay. So look at your heavy hitters where you're at first. So start in your local community. Look at those businesses, corporations, possibly a foundation you may or may not know about, because we have several in our area. We actually have one in Hope. There's one in Prescott. There's one in Arkadelphia. And then there's one in, oh man, there's a small town. Where is that? I'd have to look that up. But it is here, but it's just rural. So look at those. That would be a good starting place for your research. Here are your major employers. That might be an opening for you as well. In our small community, our businesses do a lot of sponsorships. So that is one of those ways that though we may not get like true corporate money from, they're still giving in our community. So there will be some that, like on the corporate level, they're just going to say absolutely no all the time. They want their local business affiliates to take care of that. Okay, who are your larger institutions? Those large employers, those are good places to look. Tyson, Walmart, you know, all those guys. Join groups. Also, connect with other people that might be doing something similar to you in the community. And libraries are always a resource. They have so many subscriptions that they do at libraries. And it may be different at every library. So you may have to go like to Texarkana or, you know, somewhere else that might have a bigger offering, and see if they have any of these subscriptions to some of the sites that I'm going to talk to you guys about a little bit later. Some big libraries will do subscriptions to grant services. Okay, so how to find grants. So finding federal grants is not hard, unless you're talking about local. You know, local is going to be the hardest one to flesh out. State and federal, I'll show you state and federal. Okay, so for the feds, their website is grants.gov these days. It has one of the best filtering systems that I think I've seen on a grant site. The bad thing about it is the feds put out so many grants that, you know, you got to really drill it down to where you're not looking through 350 grant offerings. Okay. The medical field, therapy is always going to be the worst, but the feds are going to be probably your best bet of getting what you need. So I would get on in a situation like yours, or anybody else that's doing mental health or anything similar to that, get on grants.gov. You can set up notifications that they will let you know when something has been put out. They will let you know if it's forecasted. That means that there is a plan for it to be released. Okay. Some grants over COVID just got left there in that status and never got opened up. And so it'll probably be several years before those actually open back up. But it's still a lot of researching, But if you're looking for a federal grant, do not go anywhere else than the federal website. Okay. Everything else is nothing but clickbait. Okay. What they're going to do is they're going to go over to grants.gov. They're going to take a screenshot of it and put it on their website. Okay. And then you have to log in to be able to access the information. No, I don't think so. No. Okay. So there is a state website, and we'll look at that as well. And it will have most everything I kind of broke down by department and by area. So that's going to be a good one for us to look at. Sign up for any kind of newsletter or notifications that you can on any of these sites that we talk about will be okay. And I feel like they're safe. So that way you can get notified if something comes up in the meantime, or you can prepare for it and put it in your binder. Okay, so online searches. If you hear one thing out of me, let this be it. Walk out of here with the sticky note on your forehead. Don't Google grants. Yes. I mean, and you just don't need to do that. Just please do not do that. Please. Yes. And see, and I've had to do that a little bit in my new art field because I really wasn't finding a lot of foundations. And so I did the dreaded Google search, and I'm telling you, I was there for a week. I mean, it just doesn't work. So learn from those of us that, yes. Learn from us, those that have spent way too many hours down that rabbit hole, and you still get nowhere. You still don't get anywhere. Okay, so here are some of the sites that I think that are really good. Oh, well, wait a minute. So the websites, when you're looking and you got to drill down, you're going to be looking by your location. Please do that. By the type of the grant, status. Okay. Status can mean your 501c3. Hospitals are a little bit different designation. There's 501c something others too. They're in the same category, but looking at that status and what is the problem you're looking for? Are we trying to start a program to stop smoking? You know, that sort of thing. And what's the type of service that you're going to be doing in that program? And target population. So a lot of the grants will be listed under one of these. Okay. So do we do the paid or do we do the free? I would start with the free. But just be careful about the ones that, you know, want you to log in and give you every information that you can go and get on your own for free without giving anybody your information. Okay, so some general resources, state websites. You can actually go, especially from the state of Arkansas, you know, there was that whole push to kind of get it more streamlined years ago. So that actually kind of helped a little bit because all the websites are all kind of interconnected. So you can go to, let's just say, the Department of Health and Human Services and scroll around on their page and look for grant offerings. Okay. So if you're thinking, you're like, man, I just can't remember what sites she told us to go to, then just go to that agency's website and it will connect you back to where the funding is coming from. Private foundations, pretty much the same thing, and I'll show you some there. So you're going to be looking at community foundations. These are very popular in Arkansas, and there's just about a community foundation that covers every geographic location in the state. Our local one is out of Texarkana. They are an August 15th due date. So when you guys have a moment, just kind of jot this down. It's the Texarkana Area Community Foundation Giving Tree Grant. Community Foundation, because they're an affiliate to the Arkansas Community Foundation. And they are called Giving Tree Grants. And all you really have to do is Google Giving Tree Grants and it will take you to the state site. And then you would just pick our local area, which would be the Texarkana, and then it would take you to their site and then you'd log in from there, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, community foundations are a very good resource in Arkansas. So let's just say we are based in Hope, but we serve people in Arkadelphia. Okay, Arkadelphia has a community foundation as well. So here's an instance where I can ask for money to serve the people that we serve in Arkadelphia. Okay, now we might get put on the bottom of the list, but at least we're still in the running for funding. I would think that organizations probably in the Arkadelphia area would be thought first and we would be put down to the bottom. But hey, if it gets you $50 and you need $50, it's worth it. Okay, so you're going to be looking at corporate foundations as well. We talked about this a little bit. So how do we find the company's corporate foundation? Well, they hide them. and I'll look for an example. They do hide them. You got to scroll all the way to the bottom. Sometimes you might get lucky on their main menu bar. It's usually with like customer relations or where they do all their like reporting, their like tax stuff and like the NASDAQ, here's all the wonderful things that we do. It's usually under that tab. Okay. If it's not at that tab, then you scroll all the way to the bottom and you go to the site map. Okay. When you go to the site map, almost, I would say, the majority of your websites that you're going to be looking at will have some sort of a site map. It's just kind of built into templates these days. And so that will take and give you a list of all the links on that website. Okay, so then you're just going to go down through there. You're going to look for some type of term that says we're giving back, giving to the community. Here's what we do for our communities, that sort of speech there. Sometimes they will say corporate foundation. And you're like, oh my goodness, I found it. Yay, wonderful. But most of them are a little hidden unless the company is really out there about supporting and giving back dollars. There's only one, that one corporate foundation. I say foundation. I don't know that they have one. It is a business that we have a branch here in Hope. And I'm telling you, one day I was like, I'm going to find it. I know it's out there. It's not out there. It is not on their website at all. At all. Yeah. Okay, so we're also going to be looking at, and that just means they don't give. Let's just put it that way. They don't give to the community. Anyway, so family foundations are great assets. A lot of them are going to be a lot more down to earth than most of the other more national foundations. They tend to really be, want to be involved with people in the community. So, and we've got several that are around us. United Way. There is a United Way for Hempstead County, and I would encourage every nonprofit organization to apply to the United Way, whether you get $5 or you get 5,000. It's very important, and I do believe there's one in Texarkana too. So if anybody has a coverage field now, there's not another one until, I want to say Malvern maybe is the next closest one. And then they do have a branch for Southeast Arkansas. Okay, so, okay, grants.gov, Google, don't do it. Foundation Directory Online. Okay, it is also called Candid. Now, this is one of those that you're going to have to sign to log in to get into. And they will have certain features that are free. Okay. They used to be completely open back in the day. I haven't been on the Candid site very much, but you should still be able to pull some good information off of foundations. Okay, so Funding Information Network is also another good one. And Grant Gopher, Grant Station, Grantscape. I have done Grant Station. I did that for years and years and years. And it's one of those where it just needs to be a one and done, get your research done, make all your copies, and then just file it away because it's not changing much. Okay, so we are going to look at irs.gov. So, talking about organizations in Arkansas, so what we're going to look at here is the 990 PF for the Adcock Family Foundation. Everybody should have that as a handout. So there's a few things that we need to look at on the 990 to get information. And remember, this is a private foundation in Arkansas, okay? So if you have a coverage area that might be outside of Arkansas, let's just say you do some Louisiana or maybe some Texas or something, you can do the same type of search for any state, any nonprofit organization throughout the US. You should be able to pull up their information. Okay, so what you're going to be looking for, you want the newest 990 that you can get from the website. And I'll show you on the website here in just a minute. So then you want, of course, the information for the foundation at the top. And then you are going to, you're going to print page 1. Then typically it's going to be page 10 and page 11, 10 and 11 of the 990 that you're going to have to look for information. Okay. So on this copy, this would be page 10 on this 990 from Adcock Foundation. We also have that thicker one that is like the whole thing. Yeah, see this one here for, oh yeah, so this one for the Adcock, the one with the paper clip is the actual whole 990. These are just what you need to print off to keep. You don't have to print the whole thing, the whole 990, okay? So page 1, usually page 10, page 11, okay? So on the back of this one, which would be their page 10, okay, you can see how much money that they're giving out, their total assets, any liabilities, and then the total that they're going to be funding, or that they have to fund. Doesn't mean they're going to be spending it all in a year. Is it? Well, that's
that said something.
So 10 would be your. So it would be. Okay. So. Part, is that 15? Okay, so in section 15, at the bottom of the page, there's a section right here that says information regarding contribution. Okay, there's a little box there. The foundation, if they are a private foundation, they will check this box. Okay, because it means that yes, they are going to be giving money out every year because they have to as a private foundation. But if they check this box, that means they have a private list of donees that they give to. Okay, so they don't report that.
Okay, I'm trying to follow along on Zoom and like, I think I might not, I'm probably overlooking it, but what page is the section that you're talking about on?
Okay, are you looking at the 2-page?
No, the 24 page.
Okay, so you're gonna print off that very first page, front and back. So
Okay.
page 1, page 2.
Okay.
And then you can count in 10 pages. Single-sided.
Okay.
Okay, and that gets you to part 15. That's at the bottom of that page.
Okay, so it's the part where it says like information regarding foundation managers. Is that what you said? Or regarding contribution? Okay.
Yep, and so if that checkbox is marked, when you're pulling up information, you're pulling up the 990 and looking at it, I always kind of scroll to see the checkbox first. If it is checked, don't worry about it. Just let it go. Go on to the next one. The only ones that you're going to be concerned with is the unchecked boxes. Okay. And then below that in 2A is the contact information for the foundation. Okay. And then below that will give any further instructions to the organization. So this one asks for, what is it? Materials. Oh, the application form. See, technically they're supposed to send in an application form with every 990, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them will see website or something like that. And then all you have to do is, and we'll talk about it, we're going to do a 1-page request. And I just do a 1-page request to these foundations and then just send it directly to the person that they have noted on their 990. Okay. So to find them, we're going to go to irs.gov and they're going to do the charities and nonprofit tab. Okay, I'm going to go down and look for an organization. Okay, I may have clicked on the wrong one. See, I don't like how they do that. Here it was. Maybe not. No. I always get confused because it's highlighted on my computer at the office. I'm researching it here. No. Imagine they changed it. Oh, see? Right there, search tool. Happens when you don't pay attention. See, this is what I was looking for, is that bar. Search tax exempt organizations. Okay. That brings you up the filtering system. Okay. Now, the bad part about this is there's no way to differentiate between a regular nonprofit and a private foundation nonprofit on this site. Okay. And that's why I've done this, because I took the time to go through the website, and I'm going to pull up all the organizations in Arkansas. So you'll see that every church, everybody, everything in the state of Arkansas is going to be on that site. So I actually spent the time, and it took probably 2 weeks to go through and find the private foundations that are still working in the state of Arkansas, that are giving money generally to the public and not a private foundation. So you can search by different types of forms, but we want the 990. You don't want the postcard, because the postcard does not give you any information. And plus, the postcard is generally for small organizations that don't have very much operating expenses. And so you're not going to find much. Okay, so now we should be able to. Now before, when I did this before they changed everything, you could select Arkansas first. That might be an easier way to go about it. Okay, now if you know the organization, you can type in their name, their number. I mean, you can go in there and search and pull me up. Here, we can just do that. Well, hold on, I want to show you what this looks like first. Okay, so it pulls up literally everything from within the state. And I like this. This right here is new. So we never got to see that before. But then you can just click on, oh, Arkansas State University. I wonder what that, oh, that's the sorority. I don't want to do that one. Sometimes you could have in the past looked under foundation. Okay, here's something from Little Rock. Oh, they may not have a 990. They must be well, anyway, so here's the site. It is crazy. I am going to go up and look for I'll show you. In there. You see copies of returns. And there's all of our 990s. Well, all that they have uploaded. Promise you we've done our taxes. Okay, so over here is going to have a copy of the actual return that they will scan it and upload it. And that's where we get it from. Okay, so you're going to get this first page that has the information. Now ours is going to be a little bit different because we're not a private foundation. Okay. As you can tell, the information, but there's still lots of information as far as like funding, our revenue and all that kind of good stuff. Our board of directors are listed, but since we are not private foundation, I think our page 10 is like different. Yeah. Okay. And yeah. So let's go. Oh, there's another foundation. So let's go back.
Here's a good one for us to look at.
The Murphy Foundation. Talk about money bags there. Man, I wish we had Murphy oil here. Let's just do Murphy Foundation. Not only do they have one Murphy Foundation, they have several, and I'm sure that those are probably relatives. Okay, here we go. Private foundation. I'm going to click on that 2020. Okay. Had a lot of expenses, but they gave a lot of money away. So let's see. It looks like this is how much money that they have. So this $2,308 is what they have in their account just for grants, for granting. Be nice, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. So this is probably going to be a private foundation, but we'll go down and look.
So you said that like if we go to section 15 and it's checked, like don't worry about it, keep going. But what's so significant about that box being checked? Like what do we need to know about why? Like what's the why for it?
Okay, so in my kind of my playbook, there's two types of private foundations. Technically, IRS standards, they're one thing. Okay, the only thing that separates them is that check mark. Okay, so if they are a private foundation that are going to give grants, but they're going to give grants privately to, let's just say, the same organizations. A lot of times they'll either pick an organization, like a national organization to give to, or they've made relationships over the years with organizations, and so they'll fund them. So that just means that no, don't send us any kind of solicitation. We're not going to accept it. We're going to give our money where we've already prearranged to give it. So if it is checked, that's a private foundation. So they're not going to accept any kind of ask from anybody else. But if it's empty, that means we can write to that foundation and ask for money. Okay. So it is not, well, it's not check marked, but it says to see statement 11. So that's where you need to further do your kind of keep on going. Okay, so we're going to be looking for statement 11. And as you can see, as they start adding things on here, you'll see like statement 4. Well, here. You can see that. So those are just like add-ons that they had to send. So we're looking for number 11 to see what their requirements are. Okay. Ooh, you can actually write to this one. Okay, looks like it might just be scholarships. So if you know any graduating seniors, pull out this folder for them and let them see all these foundations that do a lot. There are a lot that will do scholarships. So yeah, educational grant applications, which would be a scholarship. Okay. There you go. You'll have all your information. Okay. See, that's kind of how that rolls. Now, sometimes these really big ones like to get all tricky and get you down to like a statement 11 and they're like, oh, psych, sorry, we don't do that. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many of those I've gone through and it just, not fair. Okay, so that's,
Well, like this one that's kind of big, I have no idea what kind of money we give, what the requirements are. How do you-
Very good question. Okay, so what I also like to do on your big packet for the Adcock Foundation, let's see what page is it on. As you're scrolling through there, and I could probably pull it up on the other one, they will have a list of, unless they haven't, yeah, here they are. Okay, so we're going to go all the way to the very back, and it's going to be after the first one that has the officers, the table that has the officers. So this is going to be part 10, line 3, the explanation. Part 15, line 3.
What was the question?
She was asking about how do we know what to ask when they don't tell us or give us any information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up real quick and we're going to look at the Adcock Foundation on the screen. I think that will help out. Ooh. Okay, so here you guys see that they gave away 5,000 to Carti. They did some university from Virginia, $2,000. They gave Razorback Foundation 5,000. So that's what I kind of go through. I kind of go through to see if there is another organization possibly similar to what I'm doing, or even maybe just in the scope of the work, you know, service in the community, hands on hands, that sort of thing, to kind of determine how much I would ask for. And then I would bump it up just a smidge. Because if you bump it up just a smidge, hopefully you'll get what you think you're going to get from them, and it won't be so much of a surprise. But I always do bump it up just a little bit. Like, I know I can do the program for this amount of money, but if you give me a couple extra $1,000, that'd be great. So I always bump it up just a smidge, but it has to fit what you've written. I mean, don't ask for $150,000 for a $5,000 grant. That is going to be the first thing that gets you put on a list. They do keep lists. At least I believe they do. I just tell myself that because that's why you don't get funded. So anyway, larger foundations like this, I mean, you could possibly go down through there and see 80 here, 75 there, 150 there. So, and then you might want to think, for an organization like mine, you know, we service maybe, we probably touch about 3,000 people a year in our community with our services. I'm probably not going to get $150,000 from the Murphy Foundation. I might get 5 because we're Hope and we're, you know, centrally kind of located to their service, you know, where they're from. But anyway, just kind of don't go overboard with how much you're asking for, unless it's something specific that, you know, I need this machinery and this is how much it costs. This is how much I have to have. Okay. So then sometimes, like for my binder, I might print out one of these pages just to kind of remind myself later on, if I forget, how much the typical grant was from that foundation. Not specifically. They're in categories, I do believe. Kind of like with us, you know, our wages and tips. You wouldn't necessarily see on a form like that. Let's just say if it were us, you wouldn't see all of our W-2s. So we don't get to see where they get their money from necessarily. Yes. Yeah, there will be, I'd have to go back and look at ours for some of the bigger ones, the bigger grants, like $1,000 grant here or there is probably not going to get reported, but larger sums of money over $10,000 is going to get reported on. Okay. So, and there should be a line specifically that says how much they gave out last year. I can't remember which one it is though. It should be good. Sized for. Anyway, see, you can spend all kinds of time on this. Okay, let's go. Okay, so we know how to look at private foundations or other organizations that if you want to look at another nonprofit, you can do that. All the information is always going to be online. And then let's see. Let's go back. I'm at the part where I want to show you these. Might be easier if I got out and went back. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's related. Okay, so this is what grants.gov looks like. Okay, so you can look up a keyword. Okay, very broad search term. It's going to bring me back lots of hits. Okay. And as you can see over here on the side, are different filtering types. Okay. So I don't want anything other than like money in my hand. I don't want any contracts. I don't want to do anything like that. So it's a good way to filter it down. And you saw how much it changed there. And then let's just say I am a nonprofit 501c3, and I am not higher ed. That is a different classification. Okay. See, it's got me down to 2 pages. That is manageable in a day. Okay. Let's see. So that's grants.gov, and then I'll show you. Let's see, is there an NEA one? And this is probably going to be something out of my wheelhouse, but we're going to open it up. Okay, so then you're going to get a snapshot of what it is and what the requirements are. All right there. And if it looks like it's going to be something that I'm going to be interested in, I might print off this page right here to keep. Okay, like if it hasn't been released, then I'll keep it to go back to remind myself to go back and check to see when it's released. But you can sign up for notifications. Whoops. So like if I got back into, oh, this is still that same one. So I could hit subscribe. And well, I'd have to log in, but it would get it'll collect your information and put you on the list for that specific grant offering. Okay. All right, so let's go back and take a look at the state website. There used to be. Oh, what did I do? Here. Where'd that search bar go? How did I do? Oh, I need to do it like that. So we're gonna look for grants. Whoa. They have so changed the website since the last time I was on it too. Come on. Grants and funding. If you have not looked into the federal surplus property and your organization needs things, check that site out because you can get rock bottom prices. Like I used to work for an adult literacy program and I was able to go down and get like, and this is back in the day of the big monitor computers, like I got the whole setup for less than $200. So yes. Office furniture is a big one. Utility vehicles, when they stop using those for the highway department, they go up for sale. I mean, you can find all kinds of stuff, but you have to be registered with them. So I would definitely go and register if that's something that you're kind of looking at. But they do lots of office stuff, like I said, equipment, sometimes like nursing home materials as well. Okay, that looks like it's just all. See, I'm telling you, they changed this stuff up, but this is the one for those of you that are fire departments. Emergency management is a good place to look. But underneath, see what I'm saying about each of the agencies having funding? I mean, this is all that you can get under just emergency management through the state. Okay. And I know you can do that from every website, but they used to have a centralized web page that had all the organizations listed. I don't know if they've undone that or not. I am going to see if I can find my site map. I can't see that small. State directory. Yeah, so they put all this together. Now there's a full service directory. That would be something. Maybe not. I'm going to have to relook at this. Okay, let's look at the education sites. Publications, yes, please. Okay. Go back to that site. Okay, I'm just gonna have to look through this. I'll have it for you next week because that's getting on my nerves. It is. Okay, so I would just go to the individual site and see what you can find. They will always have something on there depending on. The other one that is really good is the small business page, the Arkansas Small Business. Has a great page for anybody needing funding for small businesses. They don't really call it grants necessarily. Again. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go on because I don't want to waste too much more time on this, but I'll have it for you next week. Okay, so any questions on these few forms that we've looked for searching for funding sources, grants? It will be if you go to the IRS page, and if since COVID and they got so backed up, they're still backed up as far as uploading stuff onto the site. So I'd be careful about anything past 2018. Now, if they haven't had anything in like 2015, 2016, 2017, there's nothing there, then I would say they're dissolved. Okay, and sometimes that little section where it showed you all the forms and stuff there that you could click on, it'll say dissolution, or, you know, there's an act that they have to do to dissolve. So that should be listed there too, unless it's been in the last several years. Anything from like 18, 19 up is probably not going to be registered yet, unfortunately. Okay, good question though. Yeah, I would, if you don't see a bunch of information on the IRS site, I would be worried. Did you have a question? I'm sorry. No? Hey. Sorry, I keep skipping over you.
You're okay. Hey, can you look in the chat? They are wanting to know if this is the correct link, if that looks like it might be it.
Yes, I bet you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for whoever found it. Oh, I don't want to kill it. I just want to minimize it. Okay, so statewide request for proposals. That's all they have out right now. That doesn't look like anything for me. I have no idea what any of this is. We're going to click on it and find out. Okay, so Family Violence and Prevention Services Act, Sheltering and Prevention Services. So, ooh, that's a lot amount of money. Okay, so in an RFP like this, if I were interested in the topic, I would kind of scroll down first to kind of get a good feel for it. Am I going to fit? If I'm going to fit, I'm going to print it out. So that way I have it, because this will be part of your instruction manual for writing the grant. Okay, so I would definitely make sure that you keep a copy of this. And then of course it's got everything in there. These are nice, and the feds are somewhat similar to this. They will have like a instruction packet for how to fill out some of the paperwork, and then they'll give you a manual that you have to go through with your highlighter and highlight all the important stuff. But let's see, what is this for? Okay. Okay, so this is the page that you're most concerned with, because it describes the program that the state is wanting to release money from the state for these activities underneath this branch. Okay. This is actually a really good. Oh, this was from April of this year, wasn't it? Yeah, so it's passed. But it might come around next year. So I may not, if I've missed something this big, what I might do is just print off a couple of the pages to remind me to look for it early next year. Okay. That's a lot of money. That's.
Can you tell how much they gave away?
No, I would have to go and see if I could find that information to see how much. A lot of the foundations will just straight up tell you. State agencies, maybe not so much. That's a good question. I'm going to look for that to see if I can figure that out. But yes, thank you for whoever found that in the chat. That's wonderful. I sure will. Let me click on it. There you go. So these are all the different grant programs in the state. There's just safe neighborhoods, substance abuse. That's one of those big ones that we have a lot of mental health working in. A lot of this would fall under mental health too. So, and then I would, because I know from working in different fields that it's not all the grant offerings are going to be listed here. So I would definitely double check whichever maybe branch that your organization might fit under. So I would look more under like the Department of Heritage. I'd still look on their site because I know from my past positions that their grant offerings are not listed here, and I know that they're there. Okay, so definitely check the site, but this is a great one-stopper right here. Is really good. Okay. Great. Okay. So any other questions with that before we I don't want to get us too far behind. which we might have to, oh Lord, is it really 7 o'clock? See what happens when you have fun. Okay, so there are other ways of, well, hold on. There are other ways of looking. Of course, there's the dreaded Google. But I would start with something more defined. And you might also, word of mouth, asking people in the community, asking your colleagues around, hey, have you heard it? Are there any groups that you can collaborate with? Maybe reach out to a different program like yours in another part of the state and be like, hey, what grants have you gotten lately? Or maybe go to their website to see if they list it somewhere on their website. So there's lots of ways you can find grant opportunities. But the ones that I've showed you, start there. Because when you get more experience, you're gonna feel more comfortable out there looking on your own. Okay, so everybody, we do have homework for next week. Only one homework. We're not gonna make it to our second homework. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is just take that organization that either you've created that you're working for, whichever way you'd like to do it, and find at least one foundation that you could write to for your organization. Make sure that you're double checking their service area, the location, where they're going to be funding, what are those funding priorities, make sure those match up. Okay. And if you can't find one, it's okay. What I was going to show you real quick after you guys get that copied down. Everybody good? I wanted to come over here and show you this. This is what I'm calling a dummy site. Okay. U.S. grants. You would think would be a good thing. You even have to scroll down to get to it because it's not real. It looks real. And you look at this, you're like, oh, I was like, okay, I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Okay, small business grants. Okay. Even if they do pull this information into one spot, okay, you can't go any further on this site beyond the information they put on their site. Okay, if you go in here and click on that, that's going to make you register. You got to get a login, sign away your information. You're right for your information. So it looks legit. I like the fact that, you know, it's got all these buzzwords. The really popular stuff right now: small business grants, grants for women, college grants, yada, yada, yada. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Go to the sites that I've showed you. Don't take the risk on losing your information to be somebody's clickbait. Okay. As a matter of fact, I think I've looked at this site more than once, side-eyeing it pretty harshly. Okay, so we don't have much time, but I do want to go just a little bit further and let's start the conversation about statistics. Because I know that's going to be the one that most people aren't going to like. We can all sit in Google search. How, what, and who these days uses statistics? We can think of all different kind of fields that want to look at this versus that. And it's just essentially what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be giving them a snapshot of our organization. You just have to make sure that you use good information, good statistics, and you use them in the appropriate way. Now, that's not without saying, and people that work in statistics know how well statistics can be manipulated. Okay, I'm going to straight up say it. There are a million different ways that you can state the same thing. Okay, and that's what statistics are about, is taking that root information and retelling it to someone else that brings information about your program. Okay, it's not like we're out here, you know, trying to get millions and millions of dollars. We'd all love to do that, but let's not do it on the back of bad information. Okay, so the whole world uses statistics. Whether we know it or not, we're looking and we're weighing things against something else. Okay, so that's are going to paint that picture. Okay, just think of it as statistics are the brush strokes of your big picture. Okay, so it's those fine details that go into your project that you're going to be explaining to your readers. Okay, so what is not quite everywhere and no place at all? Is statistics. Okay, they're out there somewhere. We can't see them, we can't touch them, but they're out there. Okay, so we have some scenarios that let's start working through this. So let's put like looking in the search part out of our mind for a minute. So let's flip over to statistics and think about our programs again. Okay, so a nonprofit has a mission focused on ensuring low-income students, 6 to 18-year-olds, with school supplies. Okay, so what are some statistics that we're going to be looking for this program? Income. Income on everybody? Yes. Exactly. Okay, so we're going to be looking at household income because we know those kids belong somewhere. Okay. Okay. Exactly. Okay, so we need our poverty numbers for the students that are low income. How many families do we have in our school district that's low income? Okay, how many kids in our community do not have school supplies? Okay, so there's different ways you can approach it. You know, there's always going to be a flip side. So if a statistic doesn't work for you at face value, let's flip the other side and let's look at either the positive or the negative effect on that. Okay, and see if we can manipulate it to look and sound better for what we need. Okay, so low income, we were right. Students, how many students ages 6 to 18 do we have in the school district? And the number of students without supplies, number of students in poverty. Okay, so the strongest proposals are always linked to strong data. If you're weak on your data, you're going to get scored down. Okay, and when I mean scored down, and this is something we'll talk about a little bit later with follow-up and all that. When most typically these days, when an organization like the feds or state or whoever, they're going to get an outside body. They're going to hire people to come in and review the grant request. So every reviewer is going to be scoring each section, or if they're doing just like a specific section of like all the proposals that were sent in, or they, you know, it just depends on how they do it. But each section is going to be scored. and it's going to be worth so many points. Okay. So the applicant with the highest score is going to be put through for funding. Okay. So that's an effort to make it a little bit fairer on the process. Because can you imagine just turning it into a room full of, people that work there, and they're supposed to be, choosing the people that get the money? That's not exactly fair. So just remember that your data is going to get you a long way in being scored high. Okay, so do's and don'ts. Make sure I'm staying on the time. Okay, use data to define your problem. Do use data to define your problem. That's not a don't, that's a do. Okay. The population it will serve and the efficacy of your approach. Definitely. Okay. Make sure you cite your source within your text or as a footnote. Okay. Depending on the spectrum of who you're applying to, I would consider a smaller private foundation that I'm only going to expect to get $2,000 or $3,000 from. I'm not going to go elaborate on my grant request. Okay. If I'm asking for over $5,000, I'm going to put more meat in my tray. Okay. So that being said, on those smaller ones, I might say the American Community Survey says, and then state the statistics instead of giving a formal notation. Okay. But anything above that, if you're asking for larger dollars, then you definitely need to either cite your source or put a footnote with the citation. Okay. Which really sucks if you have a character count or a word count, because that's just extra you're going to have to cram in there. And that means there's going to be extra you're going to have to take out. So sometimes that's going to be a juggle. Do I really give a good citation, or can I give something maybe a little bit somewhere else? That's going to be one of those judgment calls that you're going to have to just go with based on what you know and your best guess. Okay. Use your data that is local, not national or global, unless you're one of those agencies that is connected with an organization that might be nationwide, like you're a subsidiary and you've got to take those national numbers because that's who you serve. Okay. So you want to drill it down to as close as you can to your city of residence, which would be your organization's residence. Okay. If you can't do city, then your minimum is county. Okay. Drill it as far down as you can get it. There's going to be some statistics that you're just not going to be able to do that with. That's okay. You can only put in there what you have access to. Okay. Use comparative data, something that's going to show you contrast. Okay. And a balanced approach. Don't hit them hard with all those medical terms and those big numbers. Okay. So we want it balanced. We do want to have some of that stronger, meatier data alongside some soft, just to kind of take the edge off a little bit. And I would say be careful of not going over, I'd say maybe 3 citations or 3 different statistics in one paragraph, because that can get wordy, which is hard. And you can't do that if you're held to very small word counts or character counts. Sometimes you're going to have to hit them with the hard stuff or put more in a paragraph, just depending on how you can do it. Don't use old data. Big no. Big no. Statistics change every year, okay? The feds will update annually based on many surveys that they do. But there are still some surveys that they only do at certain points during the census, the 10-year process, okay? So find the most recent data that you can. If it's old data, try your very hardest not to use it, okay?
What do we call it, soft data, like testimonies from
Mm-hmm.
families?
Yeah, something that would be more, can't say this word. Thank you. Can you say that louder? Thank you. I can't say that word for some reason. It just doesn't register in my brain. Yeah. Or even just like 1 out of every 5 kids have ADHD, you know. It's something that's simple like that. You want to get a little bit more into it, and that would create it more of your hard data. You see what I'm saying? Coming at it with a little bit stronger of an approach. Okay. Make sure that you're using reputable sources. Okay. So if you are getting a statement, that you include that person's, or if that person wants to be anonymous, I wouldn't use anonymous. I try to get some type of information from the person to be able to put it in there if I'm doing like a statement that she told me yesterday, you know. Okay. So, and that just means don't go to Google and get down a rabbit hole and be like, oh, these are fantastic statistics. Looks a bit shady, but they sound good. Don't mistake opinion though for objective data. Okay, and a lot of funders, they really do want to see that strong data that's not objective, unfortunately. Okay. Remember, your opinion does not count when we're talking about statistics. Okay, so statistics, they tell us about our need, okay? So a large percentage of students aren't reading at grade level, okay? So you have your student group, a large percentage, would be better if it had an actual percentage of them reading at a grade level. So, but they help us design projects to answer our need as well, okay? Our state isn't graduating enough qualified teachers. Therefore, we have a large number of teaching candidates that drop out during their first year. Okay. They help us zero in on effective strategies. Most candidates drop out because they lack basic skills. So they concentrate on post-secondary remediation. See, it's just that little bit of extra information with it. Okay, let's see. What time is it? Oh, we're almost good. Okay, so do you guys remember Carmen Sandiego? Okay, so where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Yes, oh my gosh. Okay, so where do we find our stats? Well, the best place to start is with the people that do the census. So the federal government is going to be your first starting place. I'm not going to do too much more. We'll just kind of cover over this a little bit, and then we'll be done for the night. So we're going to be looking at the Census Bureau, namely the American Community Survey. And they do those at 1, 3, and 5 year estimates. So 1 year after the census is done, they come through with a survey. Then at year 3, they do a survey, and then they do a survey at year 5. Okay, then we'll take a look at Fed stats. For the state, Department of Health data is a good starting place there for the state. Human Services Statistical Reports have good information. If you can get your hands on any kind of report that a state office puts out that your organization kind of falls under, you can read through that report and pick out the good data that they've used, go to that source and get a copy of that data and put it in your binder. Okay? I've done that before.
So when you're pulling data off these sites and
Mhm.
you're putting it in,
Mhm.
you need to
If you're doing, I would say anything above $5,000, I would at least note it from, let's just say I took it from the I would just say American Community Survey of 2019 says blah, blah, blah. If it goes above that, like if I'm writing a state grant, I'm going to have quotation marks or parentheses in my body of work. Now, I did do one grant that, I can't remember, that might be the federal grant that we just got, that I had like, God, pages of notations. So in that case, I did asterisks. And if I use, multiple sources, then I could just do the number of asterisks. And so at the bottom, then I just did like a, what is the thing that comes at the end? Like a bibliography of all the, what 1 star was, 2 stars was this, 3 stars is that. So that way I didn't have to keep repeating it and using up my word and character count up above. Yeah, so there are ways to do it. And also another good place to get is a state chamber. Is a good website for things about Arkansas. That's about all I'll say about the state chamber. But they do have good information. So we'll look at this more starting next week. We'll pick up here. Don't forget your homework, though. We're looking for a foundation for your organization. Any questions? Yeah. Then I would specifically say that. Just say, I wouldn't say like the best data I can find is, but I would just handle that in the way in your wording. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Yep. You can say, and that's the problem that we're working on, is to get this changed, and we want to see these numbers changed type scenario. Yeah. Okay. No more questions? I'm sorry I didn't give you guys a break tonight. We just got too busy with all of our stuff. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if you guys have any questions, everybody should have my information to holler at me. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, Zoom peoples. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you. Absolutely. Y'all just holler at me if you need anything. It is not a fun topic at times.
You have no idea.
Oh, that was, because it's gonna be.